The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
I hereby dub today, not Thursday, Girds Day. Oh, folks, you are listening to an old man. And I'm actually, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit nervous at what it's going to do to my voice today. I think there's going to be a little bit of a raspiness that perhaps we're not normally accustomed to, because your old pal Dan indulged. That's not the right word, because that makes it sound like I drank. I had water, but I had a massive hamburger with bacon and salsa and this whole... and curly fries and the whole thing, and it just, man, heartburn. Holy moly. Awake for almost 2 hours in the middle of the night. Just heartburn. And then the kiddo was up with a nightmare, and then the kiddo was up early just because, you know, that's what happens on days like that. So, I actually had a good buddy of mine who dealt with overnight GERD issues, and it was killing his voice. So I got to be careful. But hanging in there, I guess, awake enough to get a podcast done. You know what? If you can do it once, man, I'm telling you, once you live through the first year of a child's life, having one night where you don't sleep well, it rolls right off of you. So I'm hanging in there. Hope you guys are all well. This is Fantasy NBA Today. It's a very weird start to the show, I'll admit it. Those are the types of things that happen when I'm just a little bit fatigued. I start to talk about stupid crap, and then I need you guys to be like, Dan, and slap me upside the head and get me recalibrated here. Get pointed back in the right direction. Fun show again today. It's Thursday. It's Girds Day. We got Quenton Albertie on the show coming up in just a few minutes. He is a writer for Cavs Nation. That's a huge website, by the way. If you guys are unaware of Cavs Nation, I mean, their Twitter following alone is 90,000. That's a big one. So Quenton writing for a very large website. He also writes for the Celtics Wire. Busy man covering the Cavs and the Celtics. Ask him a little bit about what it's like to cover two teams at the same time. But mostly we talk Cleveland Cavaliers, just digging in a little bit to what's going on right now, but then more so what's going to happen with this team in a month. 4 weeks from now, when Kevin Love is on his way back, and the whole dynamic of the team is going to have to change. Who's going where, who's going to get to play, who gets to shoot, and what does that actually mean? We, of course, can take that and then break it down from a fantasy standpoint. We had a big Wednesday yesterday, also a fun one. A lot of things that jumped out at me, and we'll cover those storylines. Of course, get you set up for a relatively quiet Thursday by all accounts. Just 3 games tonight. Toronto and Golden State, that's, of course, your marquee matchup. You got TNT games, which means you got the Lakers in one of them. The Clippers, the best team in the Western Conference right now. They're playing in Sacramento as well. And Indiana. Lonzo Ball likely out for the Lakers. Of course, we can get into the ramifications. What does that mean from a fantasy standpoint? I think a few things, actually. And that's once we hit the ending part of this program as well. Also want to remind everybody here, and I'll do it again later in the podcast, the DraftKings Beat the Expert contest is officially open. Try to beat Mike Apotria and other hoopball pros that end up sort of falling into the contest. It opened up yesterday in the afternoon, so still plenty of spaces left because very few people are looking at a Friday contest on Wednesday in the morning. So I think like 40 of the 50 slots yet remain. So check those out. We'll be sending the link out on our Twitter accounts all day long. Mine, of course, is Dan Besbris. You can also get it at Hoopball Fantasy. The Twitter handle is Hoopball Fantasy, and at Hoopball Tweets. That's the other Twitter handle for that as well. Mike Apotria, the pro that you're trying to beat, his Twitter handle is just his name, which is Mike, Apotria, Apotria. You can follow him. He'll be sending those links out as well. It's a $3 entry contest. Top 10 payout, $15 a piece. You also get a Hoopball t-shirt, the winning contest. And next week, when we do it again, we're going to have an extra prize to throw into the mix. Very excited to have our big reveal on a massive thing for us here at Hoopball, just a truly massive thing that's going on. and we'll be revealing it on tomorrow's live show with Aaron Brewski. I want to do more of this logistical stuff. I have so many things to cover, but let's get into some fantasy stuff first, and then we'll loop back around to it, because I know one of the things that drives people crazy is when I get sidetracked at the beginning, and I know when I'm tired, that's more likely to happen than not. So let's dodge that bullet. Charlotte beat Atlanta last night. Of course, we were watching mostly the Atlanta side, but I also had one eye on Marvin Williams, whose minutes had been ramping up with Michael Kidd-Gilchrist out, but they deramped in this one. Marvin went 0 for 3 in the from the field and 0 for 2 at the free throw line. 6 rebounds and a steal in 21 minutes and 44 seconds. Of course, our cutoff we talked about, I think it was 2 days ago now, was he needs 30 minutes. If he's playing 30 minutes a game, he's a 9-category fantasy guy. 22, we're going to round up, is not enough. So, bye-bye. This is why we watch guys before we make moves on a lot of things. This is why we require dudes to do it a couple of times in a row. Cody Zeller played better in this one, which, of course, pushed a couple of other guys out towards the fringes. Kemba Walker, I mean, here's the thing. He's still having an extraordinary season. He's still ranked inside the top 10, but he's down to 9 now. And that's the thing with these guys that are playing a little bit over their heads, and that's what was going on with Kemba. A little change here and there can pretty rapidly adjust the rankings. And I know they don't fall that far at the top, but to go from 6 to 9 is the same, and we've had this conversation before, is the same as going from 60 to 50, right? That's the changes at the top of the pecking order. Again, still fantastic. He's still top 9 right now, but he's had 2 what you'd call more quiet games in a row, 3 games in a row where he hasn't shot the ball as well. Missed a couple of free throws yesterday, but I wouldn't be concerned about that. He's a very good foul shooter. The 3-pointers, instead of 7, 5, whatever, we had a 1 and a 2 mixed in there. The steals are still really nice for him. That's a number that has been keeping his value from dropping the way it might otherwise have been, right? We're talking about a guy that was sitting on 1.1 steals the last 2 years in a row after being a much higher guy, 1.4 and 1.6. He's at 1.3 this year. The assists are up. The rebounds are up. That, of course, that's the Dwight effect. You can see that coming a mile away. The shots are up. He's taking 20 shots a game, which, is that the most in the NBA? I should have looked that up before I went on air. Second behind James Harden at 21. Kemba Walker's taking the second most shots in the NBA this year. So I still think you can possibly sell high on a guy like Kemba. Not that he's not going to have a great year. He could end inside the top 15. But again, falling from 9 to 15 is actually a pretty big deal. The impact of going from 9 to 15 is, and this is what we talked about before, we started at 60 in our last conversation. It's the same as going from 60 to basically like 46. So that's like a 14-person drop in the mid-rounds, and it's only 5 or 6 in the high. So things to bear in mind. These things can change. But I do think he falls back just outside the end of the first round, as the shooting percentage here has moved back towards the career norm, and heaven forbid anybody else on that team ever decides to take a shot or two. That could also fall off just a tiny bit. You should be able to get something really good for him, too. You can ride it out. I mean, it's going to be a decent season, but I thought that was worth pointing out at the beginning of today's podcast. On the Atlanta side, the side that we were actually paying attention to in this game, by the way, Miles Bridges, the other Bridges, playing well for the Hornets as well, but not enough minutes to matter. On the Atlanta side, I know there's a lot of hate going on Kent Bazemore right now, and he deserves it after going 0 for 10 from the field in this game. But he made 8 out of 10 free throws, which was okay, I guess. He had a steal, 3 blocks, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. So he kind of salvaged what could have otherwise been a dismal ball game. And I frankly like him coming off the bench. He's still playing his 25 to 30 minutes a game. We never expected him to get over 30 because even last year when he was playing even better, when there weren't other guys around him that they're trying to develop, he still only sat at 27 and a half minutes. So he's only down a minute and change this year. And if he's still playing 26 off the bench, that's right around his mark all season long. The difference now is that he's able to move away from Trae Young and John Collins and Taurean Prince, at least for stretches, and he can become a little bit more of a focal point. Right? His numbers, if you look at the last 2 games, haven't really deviated much from the starting stuff. In fact, 11, 10, and 10 shots in the 3 games coming off the bench is right on his season mark. I might even argue he's doing more off the bench, and the steals and blocks are still there. The assists are probably going to be better coming off the bench if he's running a little more of the offense. The rebounding is going to be better because he's playing alongside just crummier players, so he gets to do more. So I'm not freaking out on him yet. I do think they're going to try to move him, and surely there's a team like, say, the Rockets that would take a proven 3-and-D wing like Bazemore. But I'm not freaking out yet. I mean, we've seen that you throw a guy like that onto the Rockets, he could just step into Trevor Ariza's role. Hit threes, get steals, he would block shots, just rebound a little bit worse. So you still got yourself an okay player. So I don't think you're panicking on him just yet. Taurean Prince played a little bit better, but still only 21 minutes in this game. A lot of stuff with Atlanta starting to scare me with how many different guys are playing 20-some-odd minutes. Kevin Huerter had 12, 5, and 4 with 4 3-pointers. I'm not buying in on it yet. He didn't have any defensive stats, and he made 9 shots, 4 of them 3-pointers. If every shot he takes is a 3, I guess there's something to that. But going to need a little bit more. And plus, no Jeremy Lin in this game as well, who, by the way, continues to be a must-own guy. Knickerbockers, that's the next one on our list from yesterday. We predicted that it would be a different guy every night, and thank you to the person on Twitter that actually gave me credit for yelling at everybody not to chase the Knicks on recent podcasts. Don't chase the Knicks. Don't chase. It's a different guy every ball game. Noah Vonleh, foul trouble again, limited him in this one. Just 7 rebounds, didn't get any defensive stats. Such is life when sometimes you have to guard Joel Embiid. Tim Hardaway Jr. had a terrible shooting game, but he'll bounce back. And Enes Kanter is back to playing better as the starting center. Meanwhile, Damian Dotson, Mario Hezonja played well in this game. Mitchell Robinson got 4 blocks in garbage time, and this is why you're squatting on him in places where you have a games cap. But it's also really tough to play a guy like that in an unlimited games format because every once in a while, he busts out with a 4-block game, but in between there, the previous 2 games were unusable. Previous 3 games, I might even argue, were unusable. So, therein lies the dilemma, and it's why I'm perfectly happy squatting on him where I can. But if you got to start him every game he's playing, I'm not sure that he works in those formats. It's the same damn story, and it just keeps happening. Kevin Knox had 9 and 7 with a 3-pointer and a steal, more garbagey type stuff. But obviously we'll keep an eye on things in New York and see if any kind of stability ever emerges. Mike Muscala outplayed Wilson Chandler, so that battle goes back and forth and doesn't matter to us. Simple as that. Utah got a road win over Brooklyn, starting to play some better defense, although, again, Brooklyn not exactly lighting it up with their offensive options without Karis LeVert. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson got a start in this game, played 28 minutes, had 14 and 11 with a steal, but his percentages and his turnovers are not good, and they never really have been, especially for a guy who doesn't knock down the 3-pointer. So keep an eye on him. He's owned in far too many leagues for a guy who's been as awful as he has been so far. He's number 200 in 9 category formats to this point in 22 minutes. So it's not like it's in 8 minutes a game. He's out there, he's playing, and he's just stinking. So let's not go crazy for Rondae. The minutes are nice. The fact that he was starting is nice, but he's going to have to fix his game a little bit, and he's going to have to get a whole bunch of defensive stats to make up for the fact that he doesn't hit the 3 and his percentages suck. San Antonio, Minnesota. Of course, we're always watching the Taj Dario battle, and the needle once again tipping in favor of Taj. And I feel really good about the fact that I didn't make a drop on either one of these guys because after 2 games, it looked like Taj was going to be the guy. And after 5 games, it looked like Dario was going to be the guy. And now after, 9 games of the new players on this team, it looks like it's Taj again. He's played more minutes than Saric in 4 consecutive ball games. The Wolves have won all 4 of those games. And as we did this little comparison 2 days ago, I get my days confused. Minnesota is Remember, it was that the 14th, that was the day that the trade happened, or that was the day the new guys stepped in. So it's actually 8 games, 5 games where Taj has played more minutes, 3 games where Dario's played more minutes. Wolves have not lost any of the 5 games when Taj has gotten the lion's share of power forward minutes. They're 1-2 in the 3 games when Dario got the bonus minutes. Again, I don't know that that's a correlation, causation kind of thing where you can necessarily say one leads to the other, but I think they like his defense. I think they like the way Dario operates in the second unit as more of a runner and floor spacer. And with the first unit, Taj is a guy that can impact the game without scoring. He can go bang the glass, shoot a good percentage, get some blocks and steals, do it without turning the ball over. He's a better fit, presumably, when you've got a floor spacer in Rob Covington who can handle the 3. There isn't a lot of shooting in their first unit, I'll give you that. It seems like maybe they could use a power forward who could shoot, but I think they just want to grind people a bit at the start. And it could change again tomorrow, for all we know. Not tomorrow. They don't play until the 1st, so Saturday. But a blowout win over San Antonio, 4 straight wins, 5-0 with the new lineup as Taj is the main guy. And he had 13-8 with an assist, which is not a great game, but no turnovers, and that's always a benefit to him. Turnovers matter in a 9-category format, guys. This is not a nothing thing. And if he's out there, really, he probably would have seen another 4 minutes in the fourth quarter if this wasn't a blowout. 5 minutes, depending on how things were going with Dario. So then you're looking at, 15-9. Maybe he falls into a steal in that point, and then you got yourself a hell of a ball game. So Taj is looking like the winner right now. But again, I'm not dropping either of these guys yet. If I absolutely positively had to, Saric would be the drop between the two of them. Because it does look like it's leaning Taj's way. Cleveland, Oklahoma City was another game we were watching. Cleveland is banged up right now, and they just traded Kyle Korver, which has very few fantasy ramifications immediately. There's going to be some slight bumps involved because Alec Burks comes back over from Utah in the trade. So they just swapped wings. They swapped an older one for an injury-prone younger one. I don't know, to be honest with you, what's going to happen with Burks. I'd be surprised if he got starters minutes. Crazier things have happened, but when this team is healthy, their wings are plentiful. Jordan Clarkson, I'm going to count as a wing. Cedi Osman, I'm going to count as a wing. Even Larry Nance, the way that they're deploying him, mostly at the 4. Rodney Hood is a wing. David Nwaba is a wing. Alec Burks is a wing. You could consider Sam Decker potentially a wing. Basically, anybody on this team that's playing between the 2 and the 4 spots is going to be chewing for those same minutes. And that's only, by the way, until Kevin Love comes back, as you'll hear about just a moment when we talk to Quenton Albertie. When Love comes back, all of those guys I just listed are going to be clamoring for backup minutes at the 4 and whatever minutes are available at the 2 and the 3. So they're all going to disappear. They're all going to be in a big-time mess. The one that I think has some measure of staying power is Cedi Osman because they really seems like they want him on the floor. And I'm going to ask Quenton about that as well. So we'll find out. As it stands right now, obviously Love not due back for another 4 weeks, so there is something to try to figure out here. This is a weird one from a rebounding perspective. Tristan Thompson had all of his rebounds taken away by guards. That probably won't happen again. This is the magic of an Oklahoma City team where you've got Steven Adams all over the place and Russell Westbrook leading this insane charge back and forth down the floor, and then a blowout game. So things got away from Cleveland later. You still saw decent minutes for most of the Cavs because they just didn't have anybody on the bench. They played 8 guys yesterday. All of the guys on this Cavs team that had decent games yesterday have some kind of issue in their fantasy game. Colin Sexton finally got some rebounds, but that is not sustainable. And the other stuff for him is just all he does is score. Jordan Clarkson, kind of the same story. Not great percentages, almost all scoring. Cedi Osman, not great percentages. He does hit some threes and grab some rebounds, but no defensive stats. Larry Nance, he's the guy that could potentially break through in the current setup, But if David Nwaba and Sam Decker come back in the next week, then he likely disappears. And same thing with Rodney Hood on the stat set stuff. He's a 3-ball guy who also knocks down free throws, but generally doesn't do much defensively, generally doesn't rebound, generally doesn't assist. So you're looking at Tristan Thompson, and for the short term, Larry Nance, and we'll keep one eye on David Nwaba should he somehow win starters minutes for the next 4 weeks. But to me, it feels like you're basically still just sitting on Tristan Thompson. And heaven forbid, if Cedi Osman could ever get his percentages figured out, he could actually be interesting because they want him out there for long periods of time. He played almost 40 minutes in yesterday's game. He's the guy they're really pushing. Hey, how about that Jeremy Grant pickup we advised like 4 weeks ago, huh? I know he had a couple of slow games, but here you go. That evens them all out, doesn't it? Washington, another team we were watching very closely, and this one worked out well for us. Kelly Oubre and Markieff Morris were the two guys that we've been just hammering on this podcast for the better part of a week. Keefe, since he moved to the bench, has seen his usage rate rise. He had the second highest usage rate on the team in this blowout loss, had 22 and 9 with 4 3-pointers and a steal. Kelly Oubre finally got involved in a usage rate spot and had 22 and 6 with 4 3-pointers, 2 steals, and a block. This is a homecoming game. Oubre is from Nolens, so you know he had it sort of ratcheted up an extra click. But this is also kind of what we're looking for. This was a slow game from Otto Porter. He only played 25 minutes, and those bonus minutes basically went to Oubre. So there is a very easy path for him if anybody gets moved. Now, he's starting anyway. He's starting as it stands right now, but as we saw in the last couple of games, his minutes are fluid. It could be 26, it could be 21. It may depend a bit on fouls and how he's playing, so you can't rely on him to go out there and play 35 minutes and take 18 shots. That seems untenable. I'm seeing a lot of should I drop these top 80 guys for Kelly Oubre? No, you should not. But Oubre is in a very unique position of having basically like a top 120 floor right now. The opportunity with some decent play to get inside the top 100 pretty easily. And then, if Porter or Beal gets moved, then he has the opportunity to fire himself into the top 75. That's the path here. And that's why I like him so much, because there's really a nice safety net with the opportunity to springboard. The safety net is actually as Homer might call it, a tramampoline. The safety net is a tramampoline. That's stupid. Markieff Morris, yes, he probably loses some value when Dwight Howard comes back. The question is how much, and does Dwight Howard ever come back? So you're just sort of rolling with this as long as it goes. New Orleans wasn't a team that I was paying attention to going into last night, but then Tim Frazier got a spot start, played 37 minutes, and had a pair of dozens on his scorecard, and so he's now on the watch list. What I do like about this little situation is that he didn't get picked up in many places. People didn't buy it, which I appreciate, because it very well could go away. But if you have kind of a flyer spot on your roster, it's not an awful idea. I think New Orleans probably liked what they got out of that setup yesterday. Drew Holiday is better as a shooting guard than a point guard. And if you got Frazier to run the break, just get it in the front court, give it to somebody who's a really good scorer, and there are a bunch of them. You could rack up assists pretty quick and be a little bit of a new age Ish Smith. Is that worth owning? Maybe. The 2 3-pointers and the 2 steals were a big deal in that game for him. The 12 points, I think, were pretty high, given the guys around him and how they score. The 6 rebounds felt really high when you're on a team with Anthony Davis, Nico Mirotic, and Julius Randle. They grabbed 64 rebounds in this game to Washington's 38. So, again, some of this stuff you can't really duplicate on the Frazier side, but the assists are a possibility. And I have a team, I know personally, I have one team that desperately needs assists. Desperately needs them. So I'm going to throw him into the mix. I'm not going to start him immediately. But if this is something that holds, if they're like, oh, Tim Frazier's getting another start, and see how it goes. By the third one, I might throw him out there. Houston Rockets, looks like they need Chris Paul a decent amount. James Ennis, PJ Tucker, both actually had okay games in their 3-and-D roles. Ennis is back on my radar, ladies and gentlemen. Officially, he's back on the radar. I don't know what that means to any of you. Maybe nothing. He's not a pickup after this one. He shot 62%, but he's going to get good looks playing alongside Harden. He has athleticism that he kind of adds to that 3-and-D mix, some slashing ability, and so there is an opportunity for him to actually shoot the ball really well. He'll get some open threes, but he'll also get some dunks to sort of counterbalance the fact that if all of your shots are from downtown, then you're going to shoot in the low 40s. That's just the best case scenario. But if you can balance low 40s, 5 or 6 3-pointers in a game with 1 or 2 dunks, that's all it takes to pull that field goal percent number back up to a spot where it's a little bit more respectable. Just looking at yesterday's game alone for Ennis, only 4 of his 13 shots were from downtown. He made 2 out of 4 of them. You figure on the whole, he could probably go higher than that. He's shooting 48.5% this year because he's shooting so well from 2-point land. He's been good from 3. He's at 39% from 3-point land, but he's taking half of his shots right in front of the rim, and so he can pull that number up, and then he becomes helpful to your team because he's making, at times, multiple 3-pointers in a game, while also not killing your field goal percent. So there's a 9-category angle on this guy, and we're going to keep an eye on it. Jonathan Isaac started and played 30 minutes. He had 4 turnovers, which stunk, but everything else was marvelous. 16.7 rebounds, 2 threes, and a block. He looks like he's healthy and getting ready to take off. Now is the time, in my estimation, to put him back in your lineups. There you go. I remained patient, and I feel good about my decision. Waited until we had our clear-cut green light, and this appears to be that moment. Finally, the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Clippers, the West-leading Los Angeles Clippers. Couple of things from this ball game that caught our eye. 3 things, actually, if you really want to pare it down. On the Clippers side, maybe on 5 things in this game. This is an interesting one. Marcin Gortat out with back spasm, so Boban got his customary 19 minutes and went for 12 and 12. He's like clockwork, man, but you just can't sit on a guy like that. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the Clippers side is the name I want to bring back up again, because as you guys have heard me say on previous podcasts, he is a 3-pointer or an assist away, not one assist, but just the concept of the assist away from moving inside the top 100. And in yesterday's ballgame, now bearing in mind, of course, that it came against the Phoenix Suns, he had 2 3-pointers and 6 assists to go along with what has been pretty normal for him, and that is a steal. He had a block in this game. He's averaging just a shade under a block per game. On, okay shooting. It seems to come and go a little bit depending on the week. And if I'm not mistaken, he missed a free throw. So that's the type of stuff. That stuff all seems pretty reasonable. He's a high 70s, probably, free throw shooter if you extend this thing long term. He's probably a high 40s field goal percentage guy, although that number could come back a little if more of his shots come from 3-point land. But that's an okay trade-off in this spot because he has the steals and the blocks. So if you add the 3-pointer, that already is one kick in the pants that he wasn't having. And if you add the 3-pointer and the assist, that's when he can move from a top 150 guy to a top 100 guy. So if you picked him up and this was what you're waiting for, cool. I don't have any real shares of him because everybody just scooped him up when his lines looked better than they were and the hype train got a chugging. But this is a big development. We'll see if it happens again the next time around. The 3-pointers and the assists, that's the key here. Can he keep it up? I don't know. He's a rookie. So we have no real basis to which to put this thing on. And now the Phoenix side, that's the other half of this equation. Richaun Holmes was awesome in 17 minutes, but of course 17 minutes, the key factor here. You You can't sit on that. The Suns released Isaiah Canaan before the ball game, which in my mind, I thought, oh, cool. Well, this solidifies Mikal Bridges as the starter because the guy that was potentially going to take his place in the starting five just got cut. Well, they brought Elie Okobo back, and he promptly played 32 minutes off the bench for 19 points and had 3 threes and 3 steals in this game. To me, he's worth a flyer. Because after a game like that, and with as lost as Bridges has looked playing alongside the other starters, maybe you just let the little guy run. He looked much more comfortable attacking offensively. As a point guard on the Phoenix Suns, I don't know that he's ever going to rack up assists in a big way, but they play a garbage brand of basketball. They had 17 steals yesterday. It's a get out and run, make mistakes kind of game. So you could actually see a Kobo average 1.5 or more steals if he really is going to play 30-something minutes. Mikal Bridges to me is a drop. Unquestionably a drop. Now that there's another young guy, the argument for Bridges before was he's the young guy you want to develop. Isaiah Canaan is not, so get Bridges in there and turn him loose. But now it's Bridges versus Okobo. You got 2 young guys you're trying to develop. The one that plays better on any given night is likely going to be the one who plays more minutes on that night, which to me makes them both kind of unsafe. But just from it looks like they can get it going quicker standpoint, that guy appears to be Okobo. And he did it against a good Clippers backcourt defensively. Gilgeous-Alexander, Avery Bradley, Pat Beverly, these guys are all decent to good defenders, and Okobo fared well, to his credit. Again, this is probably a high water mark. He's not going to go for 19 points every game. He's not going to shoot 8 out of 12 every game. So understand that those numbers are coming back. But if you can get 4 to 5 assists out of him, 1 or 2 3-pointers, and a couple of steals, then he becomes a worthwhile late-round guard. Whereas with Bridges, what we needed from him was to be on the floor for many minutes so that his defensive stat set could translate, and so he could maybe get a few 3-pointers up in the mix, and right now that's just not happening. It could in the next one. Their minutes could totally flip-flop, but because of that, you have to look at the aggregate. The average of what might happen would be probably in the 20 minutes for both of them. Someone might separate themselves, and so right now, if you're going to make that gamble, it's got to be on the guard. It's got to be on Okobo. So yes, Bridges is a drop as of this morning's podcast. More on the Cavs. I think we should have looped around and done that game last, but we didn't, so let's talk to Quenton now. About 2 months ago, I mentioned that we were in the era of the guest here on Fantasy NBA Today, and it continues, man. This is the era because I think it's there's no end date. This era has begun. It's like the golden age, and we're just going to hope that it lasts forever because today, on this fine show, we have a brand new guest for you as well. It's Quenton Albertie. He's a writer for CavsNation.com. He is a writer for the Celtics Wire. You're covering 2 teams in the Eastern Conference. It feels like that could become at times a bit overwhelming. And you can, of course, follow him on Twitter at QSHIRON Albertie. Maybe you can pronounce that for me because I'll probably butcher it.
It's Q. My first initial, Sharon, SHIRON Albertie.
Gotcha.
B as in boy, ERTIE.
Perfect. Check him out. Obviously, anything that we send out about this podcast, Quentin's going to be tagged in that as well, so you can find him that way if it's easier. Either way, you should be following him shortly. So, Quenton, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
My first question was how to pronounce your middle name, and then I welcomed you to the podcast. It's almost like I've never done this before. So thank you for taking the time. Thanks for carving out a few minutes for us here at Fantasy NBA Today.
Sure.
You got 2 teams that you're covering. Before I even ask you about either of them, how do you keep all of that straight in your head, covering 2 different clubs in the Eastern Conference?
Well, luckily, they're not on the same schedule anymore in terms of, playing on the same day. So it's a lot easier to juggle my responsibilities. But, it's just, I grew up as a Cavs fan, so that's just something I'm more passionate about that. But as far as the Celtics go, they're a great team, a great organization, have a great history, and it's definitely a privilege to cover them in any capacity. So I enjoy that as well.
Pretty sweet. Cavs. Let's start with the Cavs. You're an Ohio guy. You said you're a Cavs fan. You grew up a Cavs fan, so this is the team that you're the most passionate about, and it's a team that personally I have a number of questions about because it's been a tumultuous first month and change to the Cavs season. They lost Kevin Love a couple games into the year to toe surgery. It's been sort of mixed injuries since then with now David Nwaba on the shelf, among other guys. George Hill has been out for a little bit. Sounds like Kyle Korver and J.R. Smith are on the trade block, and J.R. not even really with the team anymore. Tyronn Lue was let go. Larry Drew kind of wanted the head coaching job, but not really. And now we're seeing maybe a tiny bit of stability right before perhaps a couple guys come back from injury. So my thought here is maybe we just work our way through the positions on the floor, and you can tell me what we should expect going forward from this team. And that, Tristan Thompson, for one, right now, rebounding like a monster. What does his role become when we get closer to Kevin Love's return? Do they want to play Love at the 4 at all, or is that the time when Thompson's going to have to go back to a smaller position on the floor?
I feel like this season, more than any other, they've been wanting to have Kevin Love play the 4 exclusively. Whereas in the past, a couple of years, they tried to, mix it up at the 5 a little bit. But he's not really a great defender at that center position, particularly in the pick and roll. So it's just better to have him guard, the 4-man. And with Larry Drew, in terms of his defensive principles, he'd rather just have everybody just play on their man rather than switch as much as Tyronn Lue did, which I think will help Kevin Love. Because, he's not the quickest guy, but, most power forwards aren't that quick anyways, and Kevin Love's shown an ability to at least contain guys in space a little bit. And I'm not really just talking about the stop. I just mean, in general, over the last few years, he's been better in that regards. But it's just put him in complete space, like this pick and roll, where he has no defense behind him, technically. And that's where he fails because he can't really, jump, leap, and he's not that great of an athlete.
So do you think then, so those two guys could actually end up playing together come January, February?
Yeah. Thompson and Kevin Love will be playing together when January comes around or whenever Kevin Love decides to come back. But I think that is going to be great because you're going to have 2 great rebounders. Like at the beginning of the season, Drummond and Griffin were doing great in terms of rebounding as a collaborative group. And I think that will be the same thing that Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love can do.
Interesting.
Right now, Tristan Thompson's averaging 11.4 rebounds per game. And over the last 10 games or so, he's averaging about 14 rebounds per game. So he upped his rebounding. But, when Kevin Love comes back, it's going to go back down. So that's why I brought up his season numbers. But he's shown that with Kevin Love out, that he could be somebody that guys can rely on as far as a scorer, and that's something different that he's shown in the future. It kind of reminds me of Anderson Varejao. When LeBron left, Varejao started taking on a different role as far as scoring. Tristan Thompson can't space the floor as Varejao did, but he's healthier, has more endurance, a better rebounder, and right now he's showing some solid finishing ability around the rim, particularly on hook shots. And so I think these two can play together because Kevin Love is going to want to play outside more. Tristan Thompson's ability to play inside allows him to do that.
So it seems like that, not that it hasn't already happened, but once those two guys are part of a potential starting lineup down the line, then guys like Larry Nance Jr., Sam Decker, do they have any role at that point? Those guys have already sort of gotten squeezed even with Love out of the lineup.
Luckily with Larry Nance, he's shown ability to handle the ball in space, pass. He's trying to show off a little bit of the 3-point shot. It's not really going too great for him. He's shooting 25%. He's trying to do something, and they believe he's a cornerstone, which is why they signed him to an extension. So he's definitely going to get his minutes. Sam Decker, I'm not quite so sure about, particularly just because he plays at the 4 position. Kevin Love and Larry Nance. It's just like Sam Decker's minutes have to come somewhere, but I'm not sure if they're going to give him minutes at the 3. With Chetty Osman and David Nwaba and Rodney Hood and guys like that, able to get minutes there. Although Sam Decker is a smart guy, and his IQ and versatility, gives him a chance to be on the floor at all times.
Well, you gave me a good segue there because you mentioned Cedi Osman, who has logged some minutes at the 4, but again, when it seems like guys start to get healthy, that pushes him back more towards the 3 spot.
Yeah, that's his natural position.
Yeah, and that seems right because he's not thick enough yet to be a traditional 4. How do the Cavs balance Cedi Osman, who they obviously want to have out on the floor a lot, and a guy like Rodney Hood, who's probably there at least for the time being, and then when Love comes back, he's got to be among their top 3 offensive options at the very least. How do they balance the time on the floor for guys like that? It seems like they're gonna at some point sort of run out of minutes.
Yeah, I understand. Like that's gonna be Drew's toughest job is in terms of trying to follow what the front office wants, and playing the younger guys and trying to play the veterans who want to get their minutes as well. But I think Larry Drew has shown that he trusts Rodney Hood to an extent, and if I want to go with J.R. Smith, he's shown that he trusts veterans in a sense, enough to put them on the floor. And I mean, Rodney Hood, he hasn't been the second option that Tyronn Lue said he was going to be, but at the same time, he's shooting 42.4% from 3 and 91.1% from the line, while averaging 13.5 per game. So he's not playing badly. He's just not dominating, and he's shown in the last few games that he can explode when given the opportunity. But it's more so about if he's going to get that opportunity. But I don't believe he necessarily will with Cedi Osman being healthy, and it's not any slight to either one of them. It's just more in line with the philosophy of what the front office wants in terms of playing guys that they believe are definite cornerstones. And Rodney Hood, perhaps, if he would have signed that contract with the Cavs in the summer, he would get him more play time. But because he's on a contract year and there's a good chance, he could look at other options, they have to go with what they have in line for the future, and that's Cedi.
Does that mean that the projected starting 5 come January, again, we're playing this whole thing out as health starts to come around, and obviously some guys might miss a game or 2 here and there, but the hope is obviously that nobody has something that knocks him out for 2 months, like what happened to Love. Is the projected starting lineup then Sexton, Hood, Osman, Love, and Thompson? Are those the 5 guys that are expected to get the heaviest run?
Yeah, I think those are the 5 guys expected to get the heaviest run. Well, I can't really say the heaviest run per se. I'll say those are going to be starters. I think Jordan Clarkson is going to average maybe more minutes than Rodney Hood.
Interesting.
Because not even just because Drew likes him, but because Clarkson's been playing pretty well this season. And when it comes to the fourth quarter, Drew has shown more trust in Jordan Clarkson than Rodney Hood.
Yeah, it seems like he's been maybe the team's best facilitator with George Hill out.
I can't really say that, only because I think Jordan Clarkson has a lot of work to do in terms of making the correct pass, particularly out of double teams. But he has been showing growth lately as far as making those passes. Tyronn Lue was comparing him to Jamal Crawford before, he was let go. But I don't necessarily see him as Jamal Crawford type, but I do see we made the comparison in terms of them being able to both make plays for themselves and others nearly at will. Like if Jordan Clarkson wanted to make plays for others at will, he could. But I think he's more interested in getting his own shot, to be completely honest.
I'm a Los Angeles guy, so I watched him out here for a couple of years, and I don't think I can argue with you on that point. He's a score first kind of dude. It's just been interesting to see the assists start to come up a little bit here lately.
It's because he's been playing so well. Guys are starting to play him, harder. Guys are starting to run double teams at him, blitz him, trying to get the ball out of his hands. So now he has the opportunity to see the doubles and pass to the open man.
Aha.
And the game is easier for him than it was before. But it didn't really start off like that for the beginning of the season because, after the playoffs, he had kind of ruined his reputation a bit, I guess you could say, not even really as a scorer, just as a player in general, because that was a rough little postseason for him. But the first few games of the season, he showed he's made some changes. He changed his diet, put in some work in the gym with Tyronn Lue in particular on his playmaking in terms of seeing the court. And I think everything has turned out well for him. And, I'm glad to see that.
So I've heard these weird rumors, and I'm not sure that I'm buying them, that the Cavs are trying to figure out a way to move Kevin Love after just signing him to that 4-year extension. That sounds like it'd be a really hard thing to do.
Honestly, I don't think he has the on-court value to match his contract value at this point, which is no like slight to his talent, just simply because he hasn't played really at all this season. He's played just 4 games, and he wasn't really. I mean, he was averaging 19 points per game, but it was real inefficiently on like 32%.
Yeah.
So if you're going to trade for a guy on a max contract, like with those numbers, is just. I mean, of course, you want to bank on his potential, but he's also 30. He's shown he's injury prone, and so that's why I don't think that he'd be easily moved.
Yeah.
Is what I want to say. Although I'm not going to say there aren't teams that wouldn't want him because I mean he's better than a lot of power forwards out there for sure. But I think the guys that they are more willing to move are veterans like Kyle Korver, JR, and even George Hill. Even though George Hill's played well for him, I think George Hill would probably also like to play for a veteran team that's like a playoff, like in the playoff race, because that's what happened with him last year with the Kings. He was dissatisfied with their potential of making the playoffs. So I think this is probably a similar situation from here.
Yeah, that's kind of the impression I was getting as well. Let me bug you real quick about the Celtics, and then I'll let you go. Just a very brief question on this team, more of a broad view thing. Celtics played really well with Jaylen Brown out, and I feel like a lot of weird hot takes are going to be, hey, they're better without Jaylen Brown, which seems like madness. The kid is obviously a really good basketball player. Was it more the fact that just having one guy out, any one particular guy was able to sort of free up a couple extra minutes for everybody and maybe give these guys a better indication of sort of what their role is from night to night? I don't know. I just got this feeling that it was like there's just so many incredible players on that team that nobody gets to play the number of minutes that they want. And so when they got freed, so to speak, there was more almost like the pressure came off for one evening. Did I read that completely wrong?
Oh, no, you didn't read that completely wrong at all. And what I was about to say was going to be kind of like that in terms of, well, they're definitely not better without Jaylen Brown. But I think what happened was, first off, they did need to play with a better pace and better defensive intensity. And they get that with Marcus Morris and Marcus Smart over Jaylen Brown and Gordon Hayward, most definitely, even though Brown and Hayward are solid defenders. But Brown and Hayward have also been, trying to find their rhythm. And it's like when you have that much talent, guys, it's not even it's about the minutes, but it's also about the opportunities guys get shots that they want. You know what I'm saying? And so Jason Tatum is trying to find his shot. He's doing his Black Mamba thing. Kyrie's turning up now, and he's on a rampage, and you're not going to get the ball out of Kyrie's hands because it really would make sense for you anyways. And so guys like Brown and Gordon Hayward, they're not going to have the same opportunities in the starting lineup. And so I think they have the better opportunities probably coming off the bench. And guys like Smart's not looking for a shot. He's there to play defense. And Marcus Morris, I mean, he's just dude. The thing about Marcus Morris is I think he's one of their best glue guys. I might not say he's their glue guy, like they're their X factor maybe, but he's the guy that can fit in the front court the most. Like he can play the 3 if they really need him to. He can play the 4 exclusively. With Al Horford, Aaron Baines. It really doesn't matter like who's beside him. He could do his thing because he's going to be able to shoot. He's going to play defense. He can drive a little bit, and he's going to take the best front court player, whether it be a LeBron James that's a small forward, Giannis Antetokounmpo if he has to guard him, or a Kevin Love like we were just talking about. So that's what I like about Marcus Morris being in the starting lineup. They could do a lot of things with him. And Gordon Hayward, they could do that with him, but because he's trying to find his explosiveness after coming back from that, that terrible injury he had last year, just realistically, he's not going to have it just yet. Maybe after the All-Star break, maybe. But I think with injuries like that, players are showing that they're way better in their second year than their first year coming back from injury. So I wasn't really expecting that much from him this season, to be honest.
Well, I'll tell you, your Twitter profile says it all. Renaissance man, Quenton Albertie, thank you so much for hopping on, talking about 2 different teams. That's a load, man. Do you have to watch like all 48 minutes of both teams' games? So you're locked into 164 games?
Thankfully, the Cavs games show locally here, so I can always catch those. And League Pass is a great credit to the NBA lovers out there.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's a great thing to have on in the background when I'm chasing my 2-year-old around and he's playing with Magna tiles and Legos, and I got a game going to my left. So I'm with you on that one. Quenton writes, of course, for CavsNation.com and the Celtics Wire. Awesome to have you on, my man. Long time coming. Thank you again.
Thank you, for sure.
Big thank you once again to Quenton Albertie. We're going to tweet his Twitter handle out so you can find him that way, but just for follow-up sake, it is QSHIRON Albertie, Albertie. If you want to give him a follow while listening to the podcast, that'd be awesome. Good dude, smart dude, and with excellent info on the Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics, working his tail off. That's crazy. But I guess somebody's got to do it. Or do they? Reminder again to check out our Beat the Expert promo at DraftKings. And one of the best ways to do it is to get a premium membership for free while you're doing it. Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Go to hoop-ball.com, click on the premium tab. There are two options at that point. You want to choose Go Premium. That's basically the button for acquiring the premium membership. And under that tab is an option to get it free with DraftKings. Click on that link, and it'll give you all the information you need to know. The short version is there will be a link, basically an affiliate link of some kind, so that DraftKings knows you came through Hoop Ball. And if you sign up for a new DraftKings account and deposit $10 in it, DraftKings will send us a note that says, hey, so-and-so just opened up a new account at DraftKings. They got here through you guys. Give them a premium membership, and we will do that. And then DraftKings gives you a free entry and a $3 contest in addition to the $10 you just put in. So effectively, you have $13 in your account, a free premium membership, and those $13, it's 4 opportunities to hop into our Beat the Expert contest, which is $3 per contest. If you win any of those 4, if you place in the top 10 in any of those 4 contests, you win $15 back. You can cash out your DraftKings account. You'll be up 5 since you put in 10. You'll bring the 15 back. You cash out. You have a premium membership. You have extra money. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. What do you get with the premium membership? Well, you get nightly articles, premium articles every single night. You get premium shows every single night, live interactive podcasts with the Hoop Ball pros. You get all of our tools, including the streaming schedule grid, which I myself helped put together, including the weekly schedule grid, which the great Mike Passador put together, the winner of 30 Deep last year, who doesn't crow about it nearly enough, so we should. You get layup line, you get DFS picks, you get fantasy NBA tonight, you get pickups of the night, you get weekly lineup shows, you get dynasty reports, you get start-sit tools, depth charts, projections, rankings, leaders, and more. And that's all potentially for free, potentially with the additional money that would come your way with one win out of all the games you'd play. So go to hoop-ball.com, click on premium, go get it done, click on go premium, get premium free, and take the steps necessary. You get all that good stuff all at one time. It's pretty amazing. Thursday night, 3-game slate on the docket, which is a nice breather for us again before a large Friday. Warriors are in Toronto. Raptors favored by 9.5. There's no Steph Curry in this game. No Draymond Green, far as we know. Steph, by the way, expected to make his return on Saturday. So if you're in a league with an IR slot, make sure tomorrow on Friday to get him off of your IR for Saturday, because it's going to make you drop somebody and then you're going to end up missing the game. So take that step ahead of time. We've already been told he's coming back to the floor for Saturday's game. It's official. Steph is back, baby. And my buy low or buy fair on him, my team's just been wearing it for 2 weeks, but I think they're ready to roll. And if any of you got him, let's rock. Otherwise, in this ballgame, not a whole lot to keep track of. Quinn Cook, likely time to move on from him either before or after this game, depending on what you prefer. Toronto side, from a betting standpoint, this is an interesting one. I do think the Warriors are up for this game, but I think Toronto's up for this game too, and that's why you're seeing such a big line. They are a better team when the Warriors are at half-mast. Clippers in Sacramento. Clippers by 2 on the road. This, of course, is a back-to-back for Los Angeles. Sacramento's going to come ready to play, but I'm telling you, man, this Clippers team is better than people realize still. I think this is going to be a good one. I think this is a good line. I think this is going to be a tight game. Kings want to run, and when you're on a back-to-back, it's harder to stop the other team from doing what they want from a pace standpoint. So that, to me, is going to create more opportunities. You might see some good numbers offensively from both sides in this team, in this game. And Indiana and Los Angeles, the other Los Angeles team, which never gets said about the Lakers, but because we talked about the Clippers first, that's how it came out of my mouth. Lakers by 5 at home against Indiana. To me, they're taking a little bit of a step back here with no Lonzo Ball and no Rajon Rondo. It puts a hole in the Lakers' offense in that it's got to be LeBron basically running it because Brandon Ingram has not yet taken that step towards being able to run an offensive set. That's not, I mean, last year we saw him take steps forward in the strength department. Ingram was able to get to the bucket and finish. And, you know, if there were big men right next to him, like a Julius Randle was a good fit, he'd come dashing in and Ingram could kind of dump it off right nearby. The guy on the Lakers that can do that is LeBron. That can come dashing in. But Ingram, not a great passer looking for guys out towards the perimeter. He's been a little bit of a mid-range jumper file so far. And I don't like, the turnovers have been through the roof. They need LeBron, or they need Lonzo, and they need Rondo, who, again, Rondo obviously not a great basketball player anymore, but he does run the offense better than a lot of these guys to this point. So I think the Lakers could actually struggle with this Indiana team. I know they're likely still without Victor Oladipo, but they're really deep. They're very deep. We saw Darren Collison start to play better. I think he's going to have a great game because I haven't a clue who's going to be guarding him, but it's not going to be a point guard. It's not Lonzo, who's shown the ability to shut down a lot of guards so far this year. He's been great defensively, and he's likely out. So I think Indiana is going to get into the paint often. You're going to probably see a bunch of blocked shots from both JaVale McGee and Miles Turner in this game. I think you're going to see Domantas Sabonis have a solid ball game, but I think this is actually one of the better matchups for the Lakers because he does a lot of his damage around the rim, and the Lakers' bigs are huge and don't want to venture too far away from the rim. So this, to me, is a game where Miles Turner might get it going a little bit, at least from the perimeter. I think you're going to see the guards for Indiana play well. I think you're going to see LeBron have to do an awful lot himself. It's going to be like Cleveland days all over again. And I do think this is a close ball game. I don't think the Lakers run away. That 5-point number is so very close to one that I would look towards the underdog. But certainly if I'm taking any wager on the card today, it would be Indiana. And then the second favorite would be Toronto. I think they end up playing really well. But no, that one's a tough one. Indiana's the closest. And from a fantasy standpoint, obviously in that game, we're always watching to see who does what for Indiana. And at this point, one more good game out of Miles Turner, and he could be a top 60 guy. By doing nothing yesterday and letting other guys just fall around him, he's now at 71. So we're talking 2 games for Miles Turner now. Remember we talked about this yesterday? He was at 75 or 76. He just didn't play yesterday, and 5 guys in front of him fell behind him. So in 2 games, he's gone from 100 to 71. Incredible. Coming up tomorrow, live show in the afternoon Pacific time. We'll give you an official start time on Twitter later on. Again, a big thank you to Quenton Albertie for hopping on the pod, making time for us today. Have a lovely Thursday, everyone. I'm Dan Besbris. This is Fantasy NBA Today. Make sure to follow all of us on Twitter. That's how you can stay in touch. Rate and review the show if you feel so inclined. And help spread the word. That's all part of the good stuff we got going on over at Hoop Ball. Beat the Pros. Again, that's tomorrow at DraftKings. Make sure to join us for that as well. So long, everybody.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.